In this video we're going to look at how to say your age in Spanish. In order to do that, we need to extend on our basic knowledge of numbers 1 to 10 that we have already met. So we're going to begin by looking at the numbers in Spanish. The numbers for 11 to 20. Los números de 11 a 20. Then we'll move on and ask the basic question, how old are you? ¿Cuántos años tienes? And then learn how to reply to that question. Tengo 13 años. How old are you? ¿Cuántos años tienes? I'm 13. Tengo 13 años. So here then are the numbers 11 to 20 in Spanish. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And the question, how old are you? In Spanish, ¿cuántos años tienes? How old are you? The Spanish is literally asking us the question, how many years do you have? Let's just look at that again. ¿Cuántos is the question word for how many, which has a plural ending, os. Because we're asking how many years, the word year also has a plural ending here, años. How many years do you have? This is the second person singular, the you form of the verb to have in Spanish. Similarly, with the answer, we say tengo 13 años. Tengo 13 años. What we're literally saying in reply is I have. That's the first person singular, the I form of the verb to have. 13, the number 13. Años, years. It's very important to remember, therefore, that Spanish does not use the verb to be when talking about age. The Spaniards don't say that you are a particular number of years, but that you have, or I have, a number of years. So here is the verb to have in Spanish. The verb to have in Spanish is tener, the infinitive tener. It's an irregular verb in Spanish. Let's just have a quick think about what we mean by an irregular verb. By that, we mean that we cannot predict the pattern that a verb will have from its infinitive, tener. With regular verbs, the verb is formed, conjugated in its different persons, in a pattern which matches lots of other verbs. But with an irregular verb like tener, the forming of the different persons of the verb doesn't follow a predictable pattern. So we can see, for example, that a G comes in the first person, the I form. Also that in the you form and the he, she form and the they form, the vowel in the middle of the stem changes from the E in the I form, the we form and the you plural form to an IE. So two reasons why the verb tener, to have, is an irregular verb in Spanish. We also need to think a little bit about why the verb is set out in this particular way. We look at 6 persons when we learn to conjugate a verb in Spanish. The first person singular, the I form, the second person singular, the you form, the third person singular, the he or she form, the first person plural, the we form, and the second person plural, the you plural form, and finally the third person plural, the they form. The reasons why we use these terms can be explained as follows. If I say something like, I have a cat, in Spanish, yo tengo un gato, nobody else is involved in the conversation. I am the only person there. But if I address you, speak to you, and ask you the question, ¿Tienes tú un gato? Do you have a cat? A second person is now involved in the conversation. I am speaking to you, and you are the second person. If I speak to you about somebody else and say that he or she has a cat, él, ella, tiene un gato, three people are now involved in the conversation. I am speaking to you about he or she. First person, I. Second person, you. Third person, he or she. Below the grey line in the box here, we have the plural forms of the verb. We is the plural of I, because it talks about the person who is speaking, but includes other people as well. Tenemos un gato. We have a cat. The plural of you singular is you plural. That's because if I am talking just to you, to one person, I use this form. If I am talking to lots of people, I use this form here. ¿Vosotros tenéis un gato? Do you all have a cat? Similarly, the third person plural form is the plural of the third person singular. If I am talking to somebody else about more than one other person, about them, they have a cat, I need to use this person. Ellos tienen un gato. That's the reason why we set out a verb like this when we learn its conjugation. Yo tengo un gato, I have a cat, first person singular. Tú tienes un gato, you, just one of you, has a cat, have second person singular. Él, ella, tiene un gato, he or she has a cat, third person singular. Nosotros tenemos un gato, we have a cat, first person plural. Vosotros tenéis un gato, you, more than one of you, all of you, have a cat, second person plural. And finally, ellos or ellas tienen un gato, third person plural, they have a cat. We also need to ask ourselves the question why the words at the beginning of each box are in brackets. Yo, I, tú, you singular, él, he, ella, she, nosotros, we, vosotros, you plural, ellos, they, or ellas, they, masculine, feminine. The reasons why they're in brackets is that in Spanish we often don't need to use them. The reason for that is because every single person of the verb in Spanish has a different ending. Unlike in English, where the forms have, and have are used for 5 of the 6 different persons, Spanish has a different form for every single person of the verb. There's therefore never any doubt as to who is doing the action of the verb. Because of this, the word yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, what are called the subject pronouns in Spanish, rarely need to be used. So if I say, I have a cat, I can say, yo tengo un gato, but would much more naturally just simply say, tengo un gato. Similarly, if I want to reply to the question that we had on the previous slide, ¿cuántos años tienes? I could reply, yo tengo 13 años. I'm 13. But a more natural reply would simply be, tengo 13 años.